You have access to all human knowledge through the internet and smartphones. What if I told you that internet access makes you stupid? This sounds logical, because unlimited information appears to enhance learning and intelligence. But something's wrong when people can't remember basic facts without Google. Most people believe internet access provides intellectual advantages and enhanced learning capabilities. Why do pre-internet generations remember more information than digital natives today? Information access appears beneficial because it enables instant answers to questions. But what if external memory systems actually destroy internal memory capacity? Think about the last time you tried remembering something without checking. Can you recall basic information or immediately reach for your phone? The internet trap operates by providing instant answers while preventing knowledge retention. If you want to understand why unlimited information creates intellectual dependency, subscribe to Prof. Zhang Explained and share this with someone checking facts constantly. They need to see why external memory destroys internal intelligence systematically. The system creates different relationships with information depending on your access approach. When we say learning enhancement, we mean different outcomes based on memory. For internet-dependent people, learning means accessing information quickly through search engines immediately. They prioritize finding answers over remembering information or developing deep understanding. They measure intelligence through searchability rather than knowledge retention over time. For memory-dependent people, learning means internalizing information permanently through repetition and practice. They prioritize understanding concepts over accessing information through external sources quickly. They measure intelligence through knowledge retention rather than search efficiency consistently. Think about whether you remember information or just remember where to find. Consider the difference between knowing facts versus knowing search terms effectively. This explains how different information approaches affect long-term intellectual development and capability. The difference isn't about information versus ignorance, but internal versus external memory. But here's where it gets interesting about internet access and memory formation mechanisms. The trap doesn't just provide instant answers instead of requiring memorization. It actually prevents the brain from encoding information permanently through dependency. When people can instantly look up information, their brains stop storing details. This creates what psychologists call the Google effect, where memory refuses storage. Meanwhile, people without instant access develop stronger memory systems through necessity. Consider how your memory changed after getting internet access versus before it. Did your retention improve or decline with unlimited information availability? The internet trap becomes sophisticated when examining how it handles learning process optimization. Internet-dependent learning typically emphasizes finding answers rather than understanding concepts deeply. This approach prevents people from developing analytical skills that require internal knowledge. The search focus creates what educators call surface learning rather than understanding. People learn to find information rather than processing concepts internally and critically. Meanwhile, memory-dependent learning develops analytical skills through internalized knowledge that enables thinking. Do you find yourself analyzing information or just locating answers quickly? What happens when you encounter problems requiring deep understanding rather than facts? The internet trap exploits what behavioral economists call cognitive offloading in information processing. People transfer memory functions to external devices rather than developing internal capabilities. More device dependency creates less brain development and intellectual growth over time. This offloading prevents people from recognizing that external memory doesn't equal intelligence. Choosing device dependency over internal development often produces people who search. Meanwhile, memory-focused people understand that intelligence requires internal knowledge rather than access. The internet trap creates what psychologists call digital amnesia, where information disappears immediately. People forget information seconds after finding it because brains don't store accessible. This forgetting prevents knowledge accumulation that builds understanding over time periods. Digital forgetting also prevents people from connecting information across different contexts and applications. Meanwhile, internalized knowledge enables cross-connections that create insights and deeper understanding. People can synthesize rather than just collecting information through searches. The internet trap creates attention fragmentation, where focus gets divided across multiple sources. People jump between websites, videos, and articles without deep engagement with content. This fragmentation prevents the sustained attention necessary for genuine learning and understanding. Fragmentation becomes problematic when people cannot engage with complex information requiring concentration. They seek simplified summaries rather than engaging with challenging material that develops thinking. Meanwhile, focused people can handle complexity through sustained attention and mental effort. But something more sophisticated happens with internet access and intellectual development in learning. The trap doesn't just provide easy answers instead of requiring mental effort. It actually prevents a struggle that develops intellectual muscles through challenge. When people avoid mental effort by searching immediately, they never develop capabilities. This avoidance creates intellectual weakness, where people cannot function without external support. The dependency also prevents confidence building that comes from solving problems independently. Meanwhile, people who struggle with problems before seeking help develop intellectual resilience. They can approach challenges confidently rather than immediately seeking external assistance and support. The internet trap handles what economists call information overload, where quantity overwhelms quality processing. People encounter massive amounts of information, but process none of it deeply. This overload prevents the selective attention that enables genuine learning and retention. Overload also prevents people from distinguishing between important information versus trivial details effectively. Meanwhile, information-limited people develop better filtering skills through scarcity constraints and necessity. They can identify valuable information rather than consuming everything available through access. The internet trap also exploits what psychologists call confirmation bias amplification in information consumption. People seek information that confirms existing beliefs rather than challenging their understanding. This amplification prevents intellectual growth that requires encountering conflicting perspectives and viewpoints. Bias reinforcement also prevents people from developing critical thinking skills that require evaluating information. Meanwhile, limited access people encounter diverse viewpoints through whatever information becomes available. They can develop broader perspectives rather than narrow confirmation through selective searching. But there's something even more sophisticated happening with internet access and intellectual dependency. The trap doesn't just prevent memory formation through external storage systems completely. It creates systematic intellectual helplessness, where people cannot function without technological assistance. People develop learned helplessness about their mental capabilities through constant device dependency. This helplessness prevents them from trusting their thinking or attempting complex analysis independently. The reliance also creates anxiety when technology becomes unavailable temporarily or permanently. Meanwhile, technology-independent people maintain confidence in their intellectual capabilities through practice. They can think independently rather than requiring external validation and support constantly. The internet trap addresses what behavioral scientists call instant gratification addiction in information seeking. People expect immediate answers rather than working through problems mentally and analytically. This addiction prevents the delayed gratification necessary for deep learning and understanding. Gratification dependency also prevents people from developing patience required for complex problem solving. Meanwhile, people accustomed to mental effort understand that valuable insights require time. They can work through problems rather than seeking immediate external solutions consistently. The internet trap also exploits what educators call critical thinking atrophy in analytical skill. People stop evaluating information because search algorithms provide seemingly credible sources automatically. This atrophy prevents the skeptical thinking necessary for intellectual independence and accuracy. Thinking deterioration also prevents people from recognizing misinformation or developing information literacy skills. Meanwhile, limited access people develop stronger evaluation skills through necessity and caution. They can assess information quality rather than accepting search results automatically. But perhaps most insidious involves how internet access affects reading comprehension and processing. People develop skimming habits rather than deep reading that builds understanding. This skimming prevents the sustained engagement necessary for complex material and concepts. Internet also creates what psychologists call continuous partial attention, where people multitask constantly rather than engaging deeply with individual pieces of information. Meanwhile, focused readers develop comprehension skills through sustained attention and mental engagement. The internet trap creates intellectual fragility, where people cannot handle information, uncertainty completely. Internet-dependent people need instant answers and become anxious when information isn't immediately. This fragility prevents intellectual resilience that requires tolerating ambiguity and uncertainty. Fragility becomes problematic when people encounter complex problems without clear solutions or answers. They avoid challenging situations rather than developing problem-solving skills through mental effort. Meanwhile, resilient people can handle uncertainty through mental strength and persistence. The internet trap works by providing informational convenience while preventing intellectual development completely. It allows people to feel knowledgeable while remaining intellectually dependent on devices. The system provides answer access while preventing the thinking that creates understanding. People experience information satisfaction while losing intellectual independence necessary for complex thinking. Meanwhile, actual intelligence requires developing internal capabilities rather than just accessing information. The trap perpetuates because internet-dependent people who succeed often had advantages. They become advocates for digital access while overlooking intellectual limitations. Dependency creates the successful examples obscure people who develop stronger thinking through approaches. And remarkably, the internet trap has convinced people that information access equals completely. When examining intellectual development reveals that internal knowledge often matters than accessibility. Internet-dependent people need memory development rather than just search optimization. The internet trap represents effective mechanisms for converting intellectual curiosity into external dependency. It transforms thinking into searching without requiring internal development or understanding capabilities. Understanding this trap doesn't mean avoiding internet entirely, but recognizing memory development. It means prioritizing internal knowledge while using external access as supplement. Or if you want analysis of how technology affects intellectual development and capabilities, subscribe to Prof. Zhang Explained. Share this with someone who cannot remember information without checking. They need understanding why unlimited access destroys memory rather than enhancing intelligence. The internet trap also creates what economists call search dependency, where people cannot function without lookup capabilities. People become anxious when internet access becomes unavailable, even for short periods. This dependency prevents development of internal problem-solving skills that require working memory. Search addiction also prevents people from developing confidence in their intellectual capabilities completely. Meanwhile, memory-dependent people maintain intellectual self-reliance through internal knowledge systems and capabilities. They can function effectively regardless of external information access or availability. Consider how you feel when internet access becomes unavailable versus when available. Does unavailability create anxiety or intellectual confidence in your capabilities? The internet trap exploits what psychologists call memory substitution in cognitive processing patterns. People replace internal memory with external search rather than developing both capabilities. This substitution prevents recognition that internal and external memory serve different functions. Memory replacement also prevents people from understanding that external access requires internal knowledge. Meanwhile, balanced people develop internal memory while using external access strategically. They can combine capabilities rather than substituting one for the other completely. The internet trap creates what educators call knowledge illusion, where access feels like understanding. People confuse finding information with knowing information through search capabilities constantly. This illusion prevents recognition that understanding requires internal processing and retention periods. Knowledge confusion also prevents people from distinguishing between familiarity and genuine comprehension effectively. Meanwhile, memory-focused people understand that knowing requires internal processing rather than access. They can differentiate between recognition and actual understanding through experience. But there's something even more sophisticated about internet access and attention span development. The internet trap doesn't just provide instant answers. Instead of requiring patience, it actually fragments attention spans through rapid information switching and multitasking. People develop shortened attention spans through constant information jumping and context switching. This fragmentation prevents the sustained focus necessary for complex learning and analysis. The jumping also prevents deep engagement that builds genuine understanding over time. Meanwhile, focused people maintain extended attention spans through practice with challenging material. They can engage deeply rather than skimming across multiple information sources. The internet trap handles what behavioral economists call cognitive load reduction in mental processing. People avoid mental effort by outsourcing thinking to search engines and algorithms. This reduction prevents cognitive muscle development that requires mental exercise and challenge. Load avoidance also prevents people from developing mental stamina necessary for complex analysis. Meanwhile, people who engage in mental effort develop stronger thinking capabilities. They can handle cognitive challenges rather than avoiding them through external assistance. The internet trap also exploits what sociologists call information inequality in access distribution patterns. People with unlimited access develop weaker memory systems than people with limited access. This inequality creates inverse relationship between access and intellectual development over time. Access paradox also prevents recognition that constraints often enhance rather than limitation. Meanwhile, constrained people develop stronger internal capabilities through necessity and scarcity. They can maximize limited resources rather than wasting unlimited access opportunities. But perhaps most devastating involves how internet access affects creative thinking and innovation. The internet trap creates intellectual passivity where people consume rather than create knowledge. The internet trap also creates what psychologists call decision paralysis through information overload. But there's something more sophisticated about how internet access affects social communication patterns. The internet trap addresses what communication experts call reference dependency in conversational patterns. But perhaps the most insidious aspect involves how internet access affects reading habits. Understanding this trap doesn't mean rejecting internet technology, but recognizing memory development priorities. It means developing internal knowledge while using external access as supplementary tool strategically. If you want analysis of how technology affects intellectual development and capabilities, subscribe to Prof. Jiang Explained. Share this with someone who cannot remember information without checking.